Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. We appreciate it more than you know. Next week's podcast will be a special Tuesday episode. That's Tuesday instead of Monday for a big announcement. Tune in then. Thanks again, and we'll see you or hear from you on Tuesday. This week on the Andrew Yang podcast.
For me, again, no, it's not red versus blue. This tribal mentality that we've gotten to in our politics, for me, it's almost unbearable anymore. You know, it was this winner take all mentality that if we won, that means there has to be a clear set of losers. No, we're all Americans at the end of the day. We should be working across the aisle to uplift every American.
It is my pleasure to welcome back to the podcast U.S. Senate candidate for the great state of Nebraska, U.S. Navy veteran, union leader, mechanic, pipe fitter, the man who wants to fix not just Nebraska, but maybe even Washington, D.C., Dan Osborn. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. It's good to see you, Andrew.
It's good to see you, too. So anyone who's watching this on video, I think you're doing this from your garage. I'm actually on my lunch break from work, so I figured I'd pop at home, and I just realized it's pretty messy. I need to clean it. No, I love it. Go ahead and show the camera your tattoos. I think you've got some ink on your.
Oh yeah, I do. I got ink. This is a compass. It's all nautical theme. A seagull, my daughter's name. I got a clipper ship going on up here. I got a lighthouse on under here. And then I have my other daughter's name inlaid in this tribal tattoo.
So people who've been listening to the podcast for a while will recognize you from your independent Senate candidacy. I guess, was that 24? Did I make that up?
Yeah, seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, and I want to say you got 47% as an independent, unknown mechanic candidate, which must have been wild. I don't think, I guess, we haven't publicly debriefed about that. But how was that experience?
Yeah, it was wild. We started with nothing but an idea. Actually, a lot of people don't know, the origin story of how we got started. I basically was recruited. There's a group of railroaders out in North Platte, Nebraska. North Platte boasts the largest rail yard in the country, and they were upset with Senator Fisher on the way she votes on rail. I mean, for example, she headed the transportation committee that allowed railroads to police their own safety, and now they have death factored in as acceptable. So they wanted to find an independent, preferably a labor leader, to run against her. And they found me, and it took me about 3 weeks of deliberating, talking to my friends and family, anybody I cared about or respected. And, most people told me not to do it, that I wouldn't get any kind of support. But so I went ahead and decided to do it anyway. And fast forward and to 47% of the vote. And we did that through a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, hiring the right people. And ultimately we had the right message, and we were effective in getting it out into the people of Nebraska. And I think it just really goes to show people are ready for a true change, and not just, somebody telling them something from one of the parties. I think people are a bit jaded with our duopoly two-party system right now.
Well, your race in 24 was one of the most inspirational races in the country, where people don't think of Nebraska as a swing state, because it's not. It's a very red state. It has a little bit of a blue dot, I think it's called, in the form of Omaha. But if you look at the state as a whole, it's completely dominated by Republicans, and no one thought that an incumbent Republican senator like Deb Fischer was going to have a real challenge on her hands. Everyone's like, "Oh, that's easy. That's a cruise," and you did something really mold breaking, which is you ran as an independent, and there wasn't a Democrat in the race. And one reason why I think people gravitate towards you, Dan, is that it takes only 30 seconds with you to get a sense of who you are as a Navy veteran, a labor guy, like you're on your lunch break to, to do this interview, where it's very, very hard to cast you as like a corrupt DC crony type. And it's pretty easy to cast most incumbent senators because, like Deb Fischer has been a rubber stamp since her time. And now you're back again. But you put such a scare into the establishment that they had to spend 8 figures trying to tank your campaign down the stretch, which is something that no one would have anticipated. Everyone thinks the Republicans are going to have to spend $0 holding a Senate seat in Ruby Red, Nebraska. And then I want to say they had to spend $13 million to bring your numbers down when polls showed you tying or beating the incumbent. And they spent that money on ads saying you were, drumroll please, a secret Democrat. I think that is like the most effective attack you could level in a place like Nebraska.
Yep. Yeah, they did. And, they're at it again. My opponent, Pete Ricketts, has already spent $90,000 on radio ad buys. And I know he's got TV points reserved. And it's the same message. They'll spend another $50 million trying to paint me out to be somebody I'm not. The facts are, I've been both my wife and I actually have been registered independents from the time I could vote. I've never understood why I have to, accept a set of values and reject another set to be a part of a party. But I think really the secret sauce going out, we did 200 town halls, and I learned a lot from the people of Nebraska. Hopefully we'll do another 250. We're just going to go out and meet people where they are, where they live, where they work, where they pray, and celebrate, and really learn from them and continually learning from them. And it's really just about how I'm able to, I suppose, mesh with them, right? And to understand them and they can understand me. And I like to call it paycheck populism. I was doing an exit interview and they said, "Oh, you ran this really strong economic populist campaign." And I go, "I did. I don't really know what that means. Well, what part of the economy? It's this huge, broad entity. And specifically what part of it, I don't know. But what I do know is I was able to relate to people based off of our paychecks. I get a paycheck every week. I know how much comes in and I know how much goes out, and I know how much policy influences my paycheck. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to live off my same paycheck that it was 4 or 5 years ago. And that's because, inflation, healthcare, you name it, the subject, there's a good chance you could relate it back to your paycheck and how policy influences that. And tariffs now, everything is going up so quickly. I'm feeling the squeeze, and most of the people that I talk to on a daily basis are also feeling that same squeeze, and they know because I tell everybody, and I'll tell your audience too. That's something I'm sure you already know, that less than 2% of our elected officials in both the House and Senate come from the working class or the wage earning class or blue collar, however you want to say it. And it's been that way in our country from the very beginning.
So you're right that the folks who are in DC were always something of like the economic elite. But it's much more extreme now than it used to be even. I think like a majority of members of Congress are millionaires, which was not the case even, I think, in like let's say the 90s. It's just gotten much, much more egregious. I think that your campaign of the Mechanic versus the Millionaire is going to be very resonant. And when you talk about feeling the pinch or the squeeze, it's going to be tough for Pete Ricketts to say that he feels the squeeze because he's from like a billionaire family and is like well beyond those concerns. And I'm not someone who's like going to take someone to task for what family they're born into, but it certainly makes it much, much harder for him to relate to the average Nebraskan.
That's so true. I like to say Ricketts doesn't care if the local public pool closes down because he's got 10 of them, right? And that's something that I like to use because I grew up in the local public pool. That was my summers as a kid. And, so I think it's something a lot of people can relate to. And, there's a lot of public pools around Nebraska that weren't open this summer. And, it's not, I suppose, first world problems there, but, it just really goes to show who this guy is. He was born with the silver spoon. So how could he possibly know, coming from the background that he came from? And I'm not blaming him for being, we're all born in our lot in life, right? But the problem, inherent problem is the money that he spends in the state and the way he approaches policy based off of his life experiences. And, he ran my state like when he was governor, he ran it like a mob boss. He would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars against Republicans in primaries if they weren't in lockstep with him. And if you weren't in lockstep with him and you wouldn't do his bidding, you didn't work in the state any longer. So that's how he ran it. That's who he is. He's a master spinster. He's a master liar, and he's at it again. But I think. Wisconsin showed people that we are no longer going to be bought as citizens. You can't buy elections anymore, and we'll see what happens. But I'm going to go out and fight like hell and try to get our message out there to the people of Nebraska.
Thank you, listeners. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, send them to mailbag@andrewyang.com, and we'll do our best to answer them. Thank you. Well, you have something of a running start in that you did 200 town halls. You got 47% of the vote just a year ago. So you're kind of a familiar figure to some folks. You even were on TV, and I dare say your ads were excellent. And I'd urge people to check them out, where Dan can say and do things that other candidates can't because of who he is and the shoes that he's walking around in right now. What's funny is a lot of political figures talk about it's like, oh, I remember when I did this or I did that, and in your case, I'm still doing it. Walking around. Do you feel like a familiar figure now to more and more Nebraskans? And is it difficult to run a statewide campaign while simultaneously holding down a 9-to-5?
Yeah, I do. To answer the first part of your question, it is. I do. I get recognized a lot. The town halls, we've done 6 or 7 of them now, and we've had anywhere from 40 to 100 people, in small towns across Nebraska so far. A clear contrast is. My kickoff, I had around 700 people. We squeezed 700 people into an event that holds 600. Don't tell the fire marshal. But and then we had another couple thousand online, as opposed to 2023 when I kicked off my first campaign. I think there was 40, 45 people there. So, yeah, we've gained some notoriety, some name recognition, which is we are starting from a lot stronger place. People know who I am and what my message is, and what it is we want to accomplish in DC. But yeah, running as a 9-to-5 working person, it's extremely difficult. I don't use company time. Like I said, I'm on my lunch break. Real quick, I'm going to head straight back to work when this is over. But still the debt collectors and the people that I owe my money to, they don't care that I ran the closest Senate race in the country. So I got to continue to work and pay my bills and provide for my family. It's what I do. It's what I've always loved doing. I'm not complaining. I like doing it. And, nights and weekends is when I'm going to do my campaigning.
So you're looking to stretch Nebraskans' paychecks if you get into the Senate. What are the issues that when you raise to voters, they get most animated about? And the 3 biggest things that you would love to do if you get into the Senate and have the ability to sponsor legislation?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the low-hanging fruit, and that's right to repair. If you own something, you should have the right to repair it. It's kind of one of those no-brainer type things, but in a world that's corporate-driven, multinational corporations are very good at trying to remove us from our money. And right to repair is one of those issues. It started with John Deere. They've made their equipment proprietary and their software. You have to actually have a John Deere rep or to come out and start your tractor because your software needs updated. And if your tractor breaks, you got to take it to, basically the dealership. And that's taken money from our farmers at a time where, our farmers are struggling because we haven't passed a farm bill. We're on extension from 2018, so our prices are outdated. And that's one of the three pillars of sustainable farming is keeping our farmers profitable, because 2% of us in America feed the rest of us, or them, I suppose, the farmers. So to keep them profitable, be a priority. And right to repair certainly is one of those issues, and it should be a bipartisan issue. Again, because it's a no-brainer, but it also is spilling into, the regular consumer world. You used to be able to take the back of your phone off and replace the battery for $50, and your phone was good for another 2 years. Well, now I got a whole junk drawer full of $8 to $1,000 phones that go bad magically every 2 years, and so it's also spilling into the automotive industry. They're starting to microchip car parts. So you can't, I replaced the alternator on the side of my road a couple summers ago. I went to O'Reilly's. I picked up a refurbished alternator for $60. I replaced it on the side of the road. I brought my blank back and got some money back for that. If right to repair has its ways and these corporations have their ways, and we have no right to repair laws with teeth, I got to take my car to the dealership or buy an OEM part that's going to be 3 times as much. So that's one of the I suppose the low-hanging fruit issues I'd love to jump into. But I suppose the other two, from like a 30,000-foot view of my campaign and my message, number one, the most important issue of our time. We can talk about climate, we can talk about wedge issues, we can talk about anything, but I think the most important issue, and nothing's going to change until we fix it, is campaign finance reform. It shouldn't cost each candidate in Texas, Montana, Florida, Ohio, $100 million to run for U.S. Senate. I don't know how you don't get people that are bought and sold, that are taking corporate interest money, and they're going to have to turn around and pay the piper and do their bidding when it comes to legislation and voting. When they say the system is rigged, it is absolutely rigged. It's rigged in the favors of the corporations in the form of Citizens United. That's right. That states corporations are people, money's free speech. BS. And they can donate an unlimited amount of money to independent expenditures. That we could talk about election rigging and voter fraud and dead people voting. This is the number one issue that is affecting our elections. It's the special interests, the billionaires and the corporations that can afford to buy senators and House members. And so I'm very adamant about finding a way and continuing to highlight and be a champion for that issue. The second issue has got to be antitrust and anti-monopoly laws. Not super sexy issues, but still extremely important. And this is to create an even playing field for workers and for small business owners who want to start their business. Like the company I work for, Grunwald Mechanical, is family owned and operated. They have been for over 125 years, and they're able to stay in business because there's an even playing field. But if you allow, in a lot of industries, it's not. If you allow these monopolies to continue to take over, you're going to have mom and pop shops close down. You're going to have workers that aren't going to have rights in their workplace. You're going to have stagnant wages and benefits. For example, Dollar General. You can drive in any town in my state, and and there's a Dollar General at the beginning or end of it, depending on which way you're going. And then you'll see a mom and pop shop boarded up because they can't compete with the Dollar General model. And that is where our government should step in with our antitrust and anti-monopoly laws that we already have on the books to create that even playing field for people to get ahead.
Love it. Campaign finance reform, I mean, you're living it, Dan.
Yeah, I won't take corporate money. I don't want to be owned. If I get elected, we raised $14 million, and my average donation, well, this was in 24, my average donation was $37. So it truly was powered by the people. So we're doing it again. My wife and I open up envelopes from people across the country with encouraging letters and checks for $10. We do, we have stacks of them that we do it all day long. So it's powered by the people, and it's going to be the people that win this thing in 26.
This podcast is sponsored by Helix Sleep. I have been a proud, happy Helix Sleep customer for years now because my mattress just keeps on giving. I've always been someone who thought, you know what, you should invest in a proper mattress because you're on your back or your belly or your side for 8 hours a night. So I ordered an Ultra Dawn firm mattress, and it has been a game changer. I've had it for, now years, and I'm telling you, total transformation. Go to helixsleep.com/yang for 25% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/yang for 25% off site-wide. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent you. helixsleep.com/yang. Well, I'm a donor. I didn't send a $10 check. I think I just did it the boring way online. But I certainly believe in you and your campaign as an antidote to a lot of the politics that right now frustrate so many Americans. And the fact that you're doing it as an independent is even better because you're coming from outside the two-party system. I would say that if you were to de-next your name in Nebraska, it would be a non-starter anyway. What's fun is that it's hard to cast you as like a minion of the party because you're clearly your own person just walking around saying what you think and listening to voters as to how you can improve things. So you say you raised $14 million from very, very small donors in 24, and I was one of those too. So I guess now I'm a two-time donor.
Thank you.
First, if someone does want to support your campaign in any way, big or small, how can they best do so?
Yeah, the easiest way would be just go to osbornforsenate.com. That's Osborn with no E. forsenate.com, and there's a donation link on that website too. And with that, I gotta tell people I'm running against a multimillionaire whose family has billions. They own a professional baseball team, so I am not going to compete with Pete Ricketts dollar for dollar, but I don't have to. Right. We're gonna put in the hard work. We want to open 19 field offices across the state. Go out and be a part of communities. And be a pillar in the communities as well. We want to turn our field offices into food banks or a place to go grab diapers and formula, and whatever the needs are in the community. We want to address those and try to help correct some of those as we go, just to really show people we're here to help. We're here to be a part of the community, and we care.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of those mechanics. And so I'm going to give the bull case, which is you got 47% of the vote in 24, and now people know who you are. A lot of candidates break through the second time they run because the first time you run, you're kind of new and people are just getting to know you. And then when you run a second time, people are like, oh, that guy. And it shows a degree of stick-to-itiveness on your part, and that you weren't like, here today, gone tomorrow. It's like, oh, I'm still working hard, still getting out there, talking to people. I dare say that a lot of people are going to be frustrated with inflation, with cost of living issues. Some folks that voted for Trump potentially in Nebraska, which is the majority of the state. Some of them might have some misgivings about the tariffs or some other element, and then want to send a message to Washington. And you're going to be like a very, very clear way to do so. That you're more of a national grassroots figure now, where people are becoming more open to the fact that you need someone to run from outside the two-party system, which is a case that I make. Certainly independents are getting more and more commonplace out there. And the Mechanic versus the Millionaire is just a really good narrative. Like it happens also to be true. It smacks. I mean, they're both true statements. The average Nebraskan will look at that and say, "Wait a minute, like what's going on?" And they can be convinced that the Democratic Party doesn't have their backs. But I think it's going to be hard to convince them that Dan Osborn doesn't have their back, and that if they have a chance to meet you and talk to you, and then they see or hear a Ricketts ad bashing you, they'll be like, that just doesn't square with the dude I saw, and that you have the chance to build a real connection with the people of your state that can get you over the hump. So that's the bull case. The bear case is he's just gonna spend a ton of money down the stretch. And you're already kind of accounting for that, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's we're definitely navigating these waters of and it is a mechanic versus a millionaire who can write endless checks, I suppose. So how do we do that, right? How do we cut through the noise? How do we cut through, especially in rural areas where people are getting only the Pete Ricketts message and not the Dan Osborn message? Well, again, it's going to be going out there and trying to do as many events and talk to as many people as possible. There's 1.2 million registered voters in Nebraska, so not a huge state. I mean, geographically, it's big, but population, not so big. You probably have that many people in your neighborhood, I'm guessing. But, out of those 1.2 million, about 900,000 came out and voted. So that leaves around 300,000 that just didn't show up to the polls that day. I lost by just over 55,000 votes. So, people showing up to the polls definitely makes a difference. And that's something we're going to have to address and tap into and work hard to figure out to get people out, especially in a midterm where there's not a president at the top of the ticket. How do we get people motivated to vote? Well, I think, a lot of people are going to be motivated just by looking at their bank accounts. And I think there's 37 trillion reasons why we should make a change in our government as well. And that figure in our national debt is just going to keep growing. And people need to know every kid born in this country is born into $100,000 in debt that they have to pay off. So, it's going to be getting out there and talking to the people. And we're going to need the money of our own, but we're going to need to get on the radio. We're going to need to get on TV. But I think the secret that we have now is, first of all, my wife is working for the campaign, and she's amazing, and she is going to town halls with me. In 24, when I was running against Fisher, she was a general manager at a restaurant and a waitress and a bartender, and so she was working 70 hours a week, so she was never able to be a part of it. Well, now she's playing a big role, and people love her. They fall in love with her immediately. So that's going to be a secret weapon too. But also social media. We're already light years ahead of where we were at in 24 with our social media. And, that's how a lot of people get their information today. So we know that, and we're going to take advantage of it.
Summer is here, everyone, and where do you not necessarily want to be? Slaving over a hot stove cooking food. That's where Factor comes in. Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are ready to eat. Just heat them up in a few minutes, and you will be eating fresh, healthy food in no time. I'm not much of a cook. I enjoy getting my meals. It takes a lot of consideration, and I don't like to think very much. There are a number of things I don't like to do. And when you get a Factor meal, you know it's going to be tasty, healthy. My favorite is the horseradish encrusted chicken. And I have to say, like, you can tell the meals are healthy even as they taste great. You know that sweet spot? That's what these meals hit. Get started at factormeals.com/yang50off and use code yang50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code yang50off at factormeals.com/yang50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Factormeals.com/yang50off. Yeah, we've seen in recent races too that money loses its impact after a certain point. You know what I mean? Like if someone sees like an ad and then they're like, I don't really believe that, or like that's like, or I can tell that's kind of the money talking. And then you spend more money on those sorts of ads, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. And if you can activate some new voters, which I've no doubt you can, like that's the path, that's the recipe.
Yeah, more is more, right? And the Fisher campaign already spent $35 million on the same message. Ricketts will probably spend $50 million on, because that's all they got. So
yeah, and it rings hollow again if they're exposed to you. I also do think that the money that you guys get will go really, really far. It's very, very powerful. I mean, it's great, man. I mean, you're like the genuine article. You've got the message. You've got the life story. You've got the metal and the character. I mean, it comes through that you're a U.S. Navy vet and doing this to try and help your fellow Nebraskans and the country. I love the your wife as a secret weapon. I couldn't get Evelyn on the trail for months and months. And so the fact that you get to campaign with her is going to give you superpowers.
yeah, and it makes a big difference, because it was very stressful for me. Her, working the hours that she was working, we never saw each other. I felt guilty every time I had to answer a phone call or do call time or, and take that time away. But so now we get to spend time together on the campaign trail. So yeah, it's definitely making a big difference and a big impact on me personally.
Yeah, it really does. It's going to help you a lot. Helps the marriage a lot too. I mean, having lived through this myself. So the Democrats of Nebraska seem unusually wise in just getting out of the way for you in the Fisher race. Because if people do the math, if you got 47% and Fisher got, let's call it 50, like 2 or 3, then there wasn't a Dem. Before you started running, they probably ran a sacrificial lamb every cycle that would get, I think, like 32% of the vote or 35% of the vote or something like that. What's the nature of your interaction with the Democratic Party? It seems like they're clearing the path for you again against Ricketts, which is very wise on their part. It's going to mean that there's a real race as opposed to, just like having like a token candidate who's going to lose by 30 points or whatnot. But yeah, what's the nature of your interaction with them?
You're right. The math is math. And we did get 47% of the vote. Whatever the Democratic Party decides to do here in the state, obviously that's on them. But I think, a lot of who I am, I can align with them. I mean, I can align with Republicans on conservative fiscalism, which is out the window these days. I'm with the Republicans on securing the border. Without a border, we don't have a country. So, for me, again, though, it's not red versus blue. This tribal mentality that we've gotten to in our politics, for me, it's almost unbearable anymore. It was this winner take all mentality that if we won, that means there has to be a clear set of losers. No, we're all Americans at the end of the day. We should be working across the aisle to uplift every American, and try to maintain this American dream that we've all been born being told, if you work hard, you get ahead in this country. And so it's It's becoming more increasingly difficult. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in focusing on Republican, Democrat. I want to do my own thing, and hopefully, when people in Nebraska hear the message and hear me talk to them and understand that I understand the things that they go through directly, what it's like to put Christmas on a credit card, to be in medical debt. These are the things we need to address and fix in our country. And the billionaires are going to be fine.
This podcast is sponsored by ExpressVPN. How did you choose which internet service provider to use? The sad thing is, most of us didn't have much of a choice because ISPs operate a lot like monopolies in the regions that they serve. They then use this monopoly position to take advantage of customers, and yes, they even sell your data, your activities to advertisers and big tech companies, and you don't see a dime. That's why I protect my internet surfing and devices with ExpressVPN. When you use ExpressVPN, it's like a magic portal to a perfectly safe and anonymous internet. And don't take my word for it. This is the #1 VPN service according to CNET. It's used by major companies all over the world. So stop handing over your personal data to ISPs and other tech companies who then mine your activity and sell off your information. Protect yourself with a VPN I trust to keep my privacy online. Visit expressvpn.com/yang. That's expressvpn.com/yang to get 3 extra months free. Go to expressvpn.com/yang right now to learn more. So Dan, if you become the new junior senator from the state of Nebraska, would you form your own caucus or caucus with independents and then toggle between the Dems and Republicans based on the issue? Because I would love for the Senate to need a third chamber. That's actually a dream of mine.
Yeah, that's, I'm certainly going to have to navigate those waters when I get there. And, there's nothing set forth in the Constitution or the laws in the land that say you have to caucus, and people are like, oh, well, you won't get a committee assignment. Well, I think that the rules state that you have to have at least 3 committee assignments as a senator. But, here's the deal, Andrew. The big, beautiful bill, call it whatever you want it, passed with the tie vote from J.D. Vance being the tiebreaker. If I was there, I would have been the tiebreaker. So people would have been, coming and knocking on my door, and I could have made deals for Nebraska. And ultimately, the way that bill sits right now, it would not have passed. In one man's humble opinion, it wouldn't have passed, and unless I could have saw some different things on that bill that are going to, again, try to uplift all people and not just a certain group of people. So, I think there's power in that, and I look forward to definitely navigating those waters and seeing how I can operate within the walls of the Senate. And, I'm excited to get in there and do it. And, I guess ultimately you'll just always know I have the people's best interest in mind at all times. And that's it, plain and simple.
Well, I would be thrilled for the country to find out alongside you how an independent could best fix the Senate the way you fix an air conditioner or a car. Having a mechanic in the U.S. Senate would be such a breath of fresh air for so many Americans. If people listening to this or watching this want to help you make it happen, it's osbornforsenate.com.
Yep, osbornforsenate.com. And I think truly what this campaign represents, and I hold no delusion that I'd be 1 out of 100, right? It's going to make my microphone big, and I'm not afraid to be a general disruptor either. But I think it's going to be a spark that lights the fire. People around the country will take notice. They'll be like, "Holy crap! Did you see what Nebraska did?" Right? And it's going to let everybody know that if you're a nurse or a teacher or a plumber or a carpenter or a small business owner or a farmer or a rancher, whoever you are, the people that help build this country with their hands, you can now know that you could run for higher office and win, and we can really start to get our government reflect its people.
What a vision, Dan. You came this close, like within a hair's breadth in 24. I think you can do it this time. I certainly urge everyone to get behind you. Let your friends in Nebraska know. Send 10, 20 bucks. Do what you can. And let's get Dan into the U.S. Senate. It would be so much fun. It would give me a lot of pride and happiness to see you break the mold that way.
Absolutely. Let's do it.